Hey everybody, and welcome back to Jim's Garage. It's been an interesting few weeks. I had a fight with a chop saw that didn't end up too well. But I'm really excited now to start our Ansible journey. That's right, this is the first in several part series covering Ansible. In Jim's Garage style, I'm going to be going low and slow, we'll cover the basics and we'll gradually build up the complexity as we go from simple things in this video like installation and why you might want to use it, all the way up to hopefully and eventually having a Kubernetes cluster, Docker swarms and possibly even our entire home lab automated through code. I also want to make this an opportunity for people to submit their own scripts. So if you're an Ansible wizard, you've been using this for a long time, and you've got a ton of useful things that you think will be better for the community, please do submit those through PRs. I'll review and try and run those and keep them up to date. Do put your name at the top. I want to make sure that you get the credit you deserve, but it'd be great to have this repository of all these useful scripts that people can use. Now, before I do get started, please go and check out people like Jeff Geerling and Learn Linux TV. They've got some great videos on Ansible, and Jeff even has a series of books around it. Before I decided to commit to this series, I was originally going to use JetPorch, which was written by the same guy that did Ansible, but unfortunately that got cancelled at Christmas, so that's a week of time I won't get back. But anyway, let's jump into Ansible now. I'm going to give you an overview of what Ansible is, starting off as though you're a complete beginner, and by the end of this video, you should be able to have this installed. So one of the key reasons that people use Ansible is for automation and removing human error. You're probably starting to realize now that if you're running things like Kubernetes, or you've got something like a Docker swarm up and running, or maybe you've even got multiple devices physical in your home lab, it can become a pain to do things like updates. You have to log into each machine, you have to make sure you run exactly the same commands, you might have to wait for certain things to happen, and if you're trying to rush this through, things can often go wrong. That's one of the reasons why Ansible's great. Much like my scripts, Ansible kind of does those scripts, but properly. What do I mean by that? Well, Ansible waits for states on a machine. Where my script, it just simply says, hey, go and do this, go and do this, go and do this. And it gets really complicated if you want to build in a lot of logic. Ansible takes care of that for you. So let's say, for example, you want to perform an update and then you want to install Nginx. In my script, I would simply say perform an update and then go and install Nginx. But Ansible, what it does is it says, hey, update this machine, and then it waits for that state to be confirmed by the machine. So it says, only go on to the next thing once you've confirmed that you are up to date. And then it's the same thing for Nginx. It will say, go and deploy Nginx and reach the state of Nginx installed. And it will keep trying to do that until it comes back and says, hey, it failed or it succeeded. And you can set all of those thresholds. Now, there's a ton of features on top of this that I want you to go and read the documentation. I'm going to go through this series and pick out what I think are some of the biggest elements. We'll be covering things like Ansible pull, so we can do things like have our GitHub repository where we host all of our code. So we should be able to pull playbooks, I'll come on to playbooks later, from GitHub and have those up and running remotely. We can also do things to make sure that we connect via SSH, all of that good stuff. And then we'll cover things like roles, playbooks, and a whole host of other things, plus some of the plugins that you can get with Ansible. Another key benefit of going down the Ansible route and having almost infrastructure as code is the reduction of human error. Like I said before, if you're having to manage lots of different virtual machines, it's possible that you're going to forget to do things, you're going to put typos in, and you could end up in a bad state. Because everything's in code, it's just going to run through and do that for you. One other key advantage of Ansible is that it's clientless or agentless. What does that mean? Well, if ever you've worked in an enterprise and you have, say, something like a virus scanner or endpoint detection and response, you know that every single machine you put out there needs to have a client on that endpoint so that it can report back to the central server. A bit like having some telemetry sent back and making sure that the entire environment is healthy. Ansible doesn't need that. You have one central server and you use that to connect out to everything else. That makes deployment seamless, and you've probably, as long as you've got SSH available, you've got everything you need already on that operating system to get this up and running. If you've been following my videos with Cloud Init, etc., that should already be installed. So do go and check out those videos if you want a really seamless solution. I'm hoping that by the end of this series, we could have the whole hog. We could have our entire automation for our VMs, i.e. that terraforming script. We can actually run that with Ansible, so it will call Terraform. It will deploy all of our infrastructure. And then we can actually get into some of those playbooks where we can actually then go and deploy stuff on those virtual machines. So fingers crossed, by the end of this, we'll have a single-click deployment for an entire home lab, all done within Ansible. So rather than get bogged down into too much of the theory, I'm going to come back and add a little bit of theory in each subsequent video. So now let's move on to the installation of Ansible and what I recommend you use to get this up and running. So in my videos, I like to have a dedicated box for doing this, a dedicated virtual machine. I'm going to be spinning up just a standard Ubuntu virtual machine, but you can pretty much choose any flavor that you want. And you could also run this as a Windows subsystem for Linux or any other permutation of that. The reason I'm doing that is just to keep it simple, and it means that I can connect nicely with things like VS Code, and it means that I have everything in one place. Now, there are a few ways in which you can install Ansible. Many of the ways include things like pip, that's Python in Python, or pipx, which is a third-party version of that. The way I'm going to do this, and I'm not necessarily advocating any way is better than another, this is just the simplest way that I found, and for me, this whole series is about getting you to use Ansible. If you want to go down a different deployment route, you can obviously go and do that, and everything after this video would still apply. So the way I'm going to do this is to add the official repository for Ubuntu into my machine, and then I'm going to do it using the standard apt install method. So let's now hop onto my virtual machine that I've set up for this, and let's go and deploy Ansible. So here within Proxmox, I've created my Ansible virtual machine, and this has just been deployed using my Cloud Init template. The good news is that that comes with all of the SSH keys already applied to it. And I'm going to be using those SSH keys throughout this series. If you want to know more about that, do go and check out my Cloud Init video, but you can obviously use any SSH keys that you want. You can also generate those, and you can specify those within the Cloud Init template. Anyway, let's now jump into VS Code, and we're going to get connected to this virtual machine. So here we are, we're now connected to that virtual machine. And as you've seen in previous videos, there's often some handy extensions. So if we click on here, we want to go down and we want to install Ansible. Now, I'm not going to cover this in this video, but we'll come onto this in later videos. So I'm going to install that. This is just by Red Hat and the people that now own Ansible. And once you've got that installed, we'll jump back into now the installation process. So what I want to do now is to open up the terminal. So firing up the terminal, we want to do the following. We're going to do a sudo apt and an update. That's going to go away and make sure that all the libraries are up to date, all the repositories for our software. We're then going to make sure that we've got the install properties for software common. That's needed for when it's installing the Ansible itself. This on Ubuntu should already be there. So yeah, no need to install that. Depending on what OS you are, that might need to install some things. The next bit is where we actually add the repository itself. So for this, we're going to add repository, and it's going to default yes, we're going to accept that. Then it's going to do an update. So the first command we did here, we're actually embedding that into this command, so we don't need to run a separate command. And we're adding the library of Ansible/Ansible, which is the official repository. So setting return, that should now go and add that. It's now done the update, as you can see. And once that's completed, we can move on to the next step, which is to actually install Ansible itself. And thankfully, that's as simple as a sudo apt install and an Ansible. This is going to take up about 300 megs of space, and you'll actually notice when it's installing this, you'll see that it's actually pulling down Python. So even if you wanted to do this with pip or pip3, pipx, etc., it's actually going to do this anyway, but just using, in my opinion, a much simpler method. There might be some reasons that I'm not aware of why others are different. I do know that if you do things like pip3 and pipx, you probably need to set up the virtual environment, which can add some complexity. There might be benefits to doing that in, say, a DevOps world, but for this video, like I've said, I'm keeping it simple. We might come on to different installation methods in the future and what those benefits are. Feel free to drop those in the comments if it's something that you have extensive experience with. Once that's completed, we should be in a position now to check that it's installed correctly. So now with any luck, if I type Ansible and then do -- version, we should see what we've got here. So we've got Ansible Core 2.15.8 and it's running on Python version 3.11.4, which I believe is the latest version, and everything else looks okay. One thing to note here is all of these configuration file locations. We will come on to that in the future. So that's the end of this video. I purposefully made this one short, sharp and precise, and that's what I'm going to continue to do in this series. We've now got Ansible installed, and this is going to set us up conveniently for the next step, which will be to add SSH certificates to our Ansible, and I'm going to demonstrate connecting to some other machines and performing some basic tasks. Once we've got that in place, we pretty much have all of the building blocks that we need to start expanding on its capabilities and its use cases. So we'll be able to then start building some roles and some playbooks, some templates, etc. We'll be able to connect that into GitHub, store our code online nice and secure, or hey, maybe even using Gitya. And then we can start to get truly into automation within our home lab. As always, all of these commands are going to be available on my GitHub, and like I said at the start of the video, please do feel free to contribute with any scripts that you think will benefit the community. Anyway, thank you for watching everybody. If you've liked this video, hit the thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care everybody.